Fair. So whenever you start meditating, do that. And with a little bit of practice, it would become very easy for you. And then you'll find with the facial muscles relaxing, your whole body would relax, which could become very inducive to a deeper and deeper meditation. Try that next time, okay? Fine. What shall we talk about this morning?
Namaste. Gururaj, how does one let go of impressions created lifetime after lifetime?
How does one let go of impressions or depressions? What's it?
Impressions.
Impressions, okay. Lovely question, yes. Impressions do not come around overnight. Impressions has a long, long history to it, which could extend to so many, many previous lives that you might have lived. Depends upon what you believe. But the impressions are there. Now, impressions are in Sanskrit called sanskaras. That means that any action we do, any thoughtful thing we think, would have an impression in the subconscious mind. And all these impressions naturally would require expression. So it affects all our day-to-day living and all our activities. Right. So whatever you do, remember, it is the sum totality of the impressions contained within you. Now, how do we get rid of impressions? That is the gist of the question. You cannot get rid of the impressions, but you can overcome the impression. If your cup of tea is bitter, what do? You add a bit more sugar to make it sweeter. Right. And what is that sugar one adds? It would be your meditations and spiritual practices, whereby you overcome the impressions and allow the impressions to float away by itself. So it is a matter of substitution. You put in more sugar and make the tea sweeter. Right. And then the bitterness of the impressions would automatically disappear, like the bitterness of the tea without sugar. Unless, of course, you're not a diabetic. Good. So, implementing oneself with your meditations, which would naturally be followed with good thoughts. There should never be a day in one's life where you do not read a few pages of something which is uplifting. So here you're helped more by implanting thoughts into the mind which are uplifting thoughts, like listening to any of our tapes or reading a good book, not these novels that float around, that has only to do with one's sensuality. And they do become bestsellers. A friend of mine, Jackie Collins, who is the sister of Joan Collins, the actress. And she writes books, and she's done about 7 of them now, and all of them have become bestsellers. Do you know why they became bestsellers? I told Jackie. It's because there's so much sensuality. So man's mind keeps on reverting to sensuality instead of reading a few pages that are uplifting and giving you hope and courage and faith, whatever. So this too would help getting rid of past impressions. Now, if you try by force of will to eradicate impressions, what happens would be that the impressions becomes more and more stabilized in the mind. They get more and more implanted in the mind. So instead of dwelling on those impressions, here's the other way. Good thoughts and your spiritual practices, which will get rid of the old impressions. Now, impressions are connected with karma. Now, most of you know what karma is. Karma is the reaction of every action that we perform. And these actions do have various forms, and they have various modifications within themselves. So karma is like a turbulent ocean. And by that, you create more and more actions and making your life more and more turbulent. The whole idea is to still the waves. You can't say to the ocean, be still. No. You can't do that. You can't say that to the mind. But by doing the meditational practices as is prescribed to you, you will find that turbulence just calming down, and you view the mind in a different way altogether, because now it is still. And in that stillness, all the impressions are drowned. For impressions, like the waves on the ocean, would keep on creating, as we said just now, more and more turbulence. So, to get rid of these impressions, we use the methods, to repeat again, of practices that is given to you for your own particular needs. And with that, when the mind is quiet, you'll always find good thoughts coming to you, which is helpful to quiet the mind more further. And when the mind is quietened, then you can truly say that my practices are working for me. But you must allow it to work effortlessly. There's no effort, sir. In that quietude, you would find you cannot stop thoughts. You'll find thoughts coming up. But then, because of the quietude, you become an observer of the thoughts. In other words, there is non-involvement in the thoughts. You're a bystander. You're watching them. And as you watch them, they just fade away. You see, producing still greater quietude within yourself. As we said yesterday, be still and know that I am God. It's a quotation from the scriptures. So what man requires? I beg your pardon for this little cold I have. Change of climate and pressurized air in the plains and what have you. But I'm observing the little cough and the little sniffles, and they don't bother me. So you become the observer of life itself. And when you become the observer of life, then all those impressions that are implanted in your subconscious mind just dissipate themselves. And that is how you get rid of all the impressions of past experiences, past actions, past thoughts. And you find the quietude. There's a lovely saying in Sanskrit which means that you are then burning the seeds of karma. For example, if you want to plant seeds, and if you fry the seeds first, they will not grow. So fry them, boil them, so they can't grow into further impressions within yourself. Dear say. Now that, the whole procedure is a matter of evolution. Why are you here? Why have you taken this life? You've taken this life. You've come to school, taking this life for one purpose, is to get rid of the sanskaras or the impressions. And as the impressions become less and less, don't expect it overnight, but as they become less and less, you will find you become nearer and nearer to your real self, which is your divine self. And that adds a greater momentum to get rid of the residue of the impressions that are already there, contained. So, now, to recap, we have three aspects here. So the first is to do your practices regularly. Second is to consciously capture good thoughts. Your guru is not around with you all the time. You can listen to his tapes. And most of you here will bear me out that you listen to a tape today, and a few years' time, you listen to the same tape again, and you'll find something new in it. The tape has not changed, but your understanding has changed. We can listen to the same tape 3 years later, and you'll find a greater depth of meaning to it. Yes, it's like this boy was 14 years old, and he said at that time, "Oh, my father knows nothing." But when he became 21 years old, he said, "Oh, my father knows something." Who has progressed? Not the father, the young boy, because he has grown and developed a more mature understanding of life and living. Do you see? So now, are you really impressed by your impressions? No, you're not. They don't impress you at all. They only express you. You see, everything in life or the universe, everything is forever seeking expression. Like the flower would express itself in its beauty and its fragrance. The sun is forever expressing itself with its light and heat. And like that, the moon expresses itself by that beautiful coolness. Have you ever gone out on a full moon night and just look at it? Although the moon is only the reflector of the sun, but here the sun gives heat, the moon gives that cool feeling within you. Now what do you want? You want the heat or the coolness? You want both. Each has its place. You see. So there is a time of day and there is a time of night. And both beautifully enjoyable. As the sun reflects its heat, its light, gives off its heat and light, and the moon reflects it back in coolness. Now here, this might sound paradoxical, but very true, that from heat, coolness is born. Yes, see. So the heat of the impressions one has in one's mind can also find its coolness, stillness, steadiness. Now, if you study the sun, it is filled with motion all the time, because without the motion, heat cannot be produced. I'm going to wait 15 seconds for these guys to change the tape. How are you, Liz? Keeping well? Good. Please. Thank you. It's all right. You know, we waste so many things in life, all the opportunities, which are our inherent privileges. No. I drank half a glass of water. Now, why waste this water? Let us put it to good use. Put a flower in it, huh? Why not? So as I fed myself with the water, quenching the thirst, the water, I'm also quenching the thirst of the flower. Because they do get thirsty, you know. Yes. So that is the secret of life, where every moment becomes a useful moment. Nothing is wasted. And one day I was watching my youngster. He filled a glass of water, had the faucet. The Americans, they call it faucet. We call it a tap. All right, and he drank half of it, and he poured the other half away, down the drain. That's what we all do, we pour things down the drain. And the stomach is the greatest drain, where we just pour things in. Is that right, Charles? Good. Yeah. So then I had a little chat with him. I said, you poured half a glass of water away. Why couldn't you take half a glass of water from the tap in the first place? And if you needed more, you could have always taken more. Right. In any case, your pops is paying for the water bill, so use it. Right. And then I told him that at this very moment, someone could be in the desert, and that half a glass of water could save his life. Why waste? And that waste comes because of our past impressions. We had not really looked after ourselves and made life totally useful. In other words, we made it totally useless. So, the usefulness of life is based upon life itself and how we handle it. How we handle it. That's important. And that is how every moment becomes so joyful. Every moment becomes joyous to us. For we start living in the moment and not in past impressions. Yes, eh? And I think I've said this in some talk somewhere. I think by now I've done over 5,000 odd talks around the world. And I have said that people do not live in the moment at all. So therefore they're not living. Living dead, I suppose. They either live in the past. Their minds are filled with what Auntie Matilda said 2-3 weeks ago, whatever. And then they take the past and project it into the future, and that's where all your troubles begin. Living in the past and projecting it, so you're projecting all your problems of the past into the future. And when the future comes, the problems are still there. But what has been missed out is the present. It's this moment. Because that's all you live in, really. You live in this moment. You're not living in the past. The past is gone. And who knows if there will be a future. So, as we get rid of past impressions gradually, no hurry, you've got many, many more lifetimes to go. So take your time. Yes. But try and live in the moment, because it is only the moment that is enjoyable. It is filled with life, for life is only a moment. 70 years and 10, as they say. It's just but a moment. And like Blake, to capture eternity in an hour. I always say, and I've said this before, you capture eternity in a moment. For that moment is eternal. So, how much is eternity? We cannot measure it linearly. Because if you start measuring eternity linearly, you're living in the world of time and space. For space is related to time. You walk from here after the satsang to the dining room. Now it would take you 1 minute or 2 minutes, 2 minutes to reach the dining room. Right. But in that 2 minutes, there's also a sense of space. So time and space is related to each other. And the more conscious you are of time and space, the less conscious would you become of causation. And what is causation? You. You are the cause of all causes. How do you spell causes? C-A-U? Yes. I nearly mistook it for C-O-U-R-S-E-S. Do you see? So to get back to the primal cause, which is you within you, the outer body is just an expression of the eternal cause within you, the divinity within you, the causeless cause. And when you understand the cause to be causeless, then you know what eternity is all about. And that eternity is just but a moment. So why not just live in the moment? Huh? And you will know you're living in eternity, not in the past, not in the future. How many of you sitting here are totally aware of your own body for this moment? I'm glad you're not. Yes. So, the awareness being wrapped in the words I speak, you have lost the awareness of your body. Do you see? Now, how about losing the awareness of the physical self and find the eternal self? That's the way you find it. And that's the way all those old impressions disappear. And with the impressions disappearing, you lose the sense of worry, problems, troubles, and anything which is annoying. Can you tell me, without thinking, which leg of yours is crossed on which leg, the right or the left? Don't think. Testing. What we've done now is brought our brother there to body consciousness, where he realized that he's crossed his right over the left. Is it that way? Or the left over the right? Whatever. You see? So the mind can flip back to any level of consciousness that you want. You can bring it down to the body or you can take the mind itself to your mind. But then you go further, and you are not conscious of your little conscious mind. I don't know if I told you this before, that this 2.5, 3 pound brain we have, and there are 12 billion cells in this little brain. And we are using only 1 millionth of 12 billion cells. So what's happened to the rest? They're dead. And the brain is only an organ to give vent or to allow the mind to express itself. Now, through meditational practices, when more and more of the brain cells are opened, the more and more the mind would flow through. In any case, Einstein only used 8% of his brain power, and he was supposed to be genius. I say, for example, me. I never prepare any lecture, never ever. I always say, what shall we speak about today? And someone asks a question, I can go on for hours and hours. Why? Because the brain cells are open, so the mind just flows through it. And there's only one mind. There are no separate minds at all. There's one universal mind in which all knowledge since beginless time, since beginless beginning, had started in the present cycle of this universe, which was created from that Big Bang. And there were universes like these before our present universe. Everything comes down one day into a state of pralaya, where the gunas, this is a different subject altogether, we'll talk about it sometime, where they come into total balance, rajas, tamas, and sattva, they come into total balance, and there is that quietude sucked into the black hole, where not even a ray of light could escape. But as it gets sucked in from one side, there's a subtle current, and because of that current, it bursts out on the other side, and that is the black hole. You come from a damn dark black hole, and you're going back into it. You see how it works. And that forms a cycle. And then another cycle begins, just to be sucked in again into the black hole. So, where are your impressions then? They're sucked into the black hole. Mind you, black holes are useful for creative purposes, procreation, whatever. I've forgotten all those things. I don't know the devil they mean. A bit of fun. True. Now, our life also runs in cycles. Yeah. When I was a young man, I was quite a nice-looking boy. And being in the film world for so many, many years, as an actor, producer, director, casting director, and everything. As a matter of fact, I had to give these TV guys, video men, some little tips before. And they had a good laugh about it too. Because they're professionals, you know. But I was a professional before they became professional. So life itself has a cyclical pattern. Right. Now, when I was a young man, with all these girlies, the phone never used to stop ringing. And knowing me, to be as a producer's, assistant, friend, they wouldn't go to the producer directly, it would come to me. Perhaps I could get them into films and things like that. And mind, it was a lot of fun when I was a young man, You have 3 meals a day, okay, fine. I used to have 3 girls a day before the meals. But now, people ask me, I says, do you make love? Imagine 3 times a day, and now I'm an old man. I say, yes, I do make love once a year. And some years I forget. You see, so life runs in circles. There is that progression, and then you have that recession. Like watch yourself walking. When the one leg is moving forward, the other leg is resting. Just watch yourself. Become conscious of it. So everything requires that rest. But that is the period to be captured. That is the moment. Even your thought patterns, you think it's a continuous thought, it's not. The thought can never last more than 8 seconds. Meanwhile, you've been thinking on something for half an hour. It's like a film. You must have seen a row of the movie film. Right. On the screen, when it's projected through the projector, there's a continuous movement, like you're walking from that end of the room to that end, and it seems continuous. Meanwhile, if you look at the film, they are made up in squares, frames. It was just because of the It's nice if everything can go at the same time. Even in lovemaking. To experience the orgasm at the same time, both of you, husband and wife. Good. Yeah, so it's like the projector with its mechanism. Although the film is made up of frames, but because of the mechanism, it seems a continuous movement on the screen. You see? So life is like that. Now, if you have a look at a movie film, you'd find, as I said, frames. Now, our lives are like that. Now, a frame is made up with, a line. There's a gap between frame to frame. Capture the gap. For that is the moment that you live in, really live in. The rest is the impressions which the camera has taken onto those frames of the film of life. It is the breaking down of the frames, that little gap there. That is where true life exists. The frame is blank. The line cutting one frame from the other is blank. Being in that blankness. For that blankness is that stillness within yourself. You don't need to stay there all the time, but even during waking life, doing your work, whatever, just go. Do Guru Shakti, bring that blankness, and enjoy life. For the frames will always run on and on and on until the film of your life is finished. The end. But it never ends, rarely. The story is over. And then, in another lifetime, you carry over the impressions of the first film. And you create another story. And that is history. He is a story. You say, your story. Her story. His story. But you get tired after a while creating all these stories and stories and stories. And they will always be created as long as past impressions exist. And then when all these past impressions cease or wiped out, then you merge away in totality. And that totality is divinity, where no more lives are needed for suffering. You've been born in this world to enjoy this world, but people don't do that. You're born into suffering. That is what we know as the burden we bring with us. The burden of impression. The formulation of the end result of the impressions is what we take over into the next life. And then your suffering begins again. You have a little rest period in between before you take on another body. Yes, but it's a rest period where you gather all the impressions, like gathering flowers from the garden, and then formulating them, arranging them into a lovely floral design, the flowers. And that forms your next life because of the impressions of your past life. See how it works? So through our spiritual practice, our meditations, we are shedding off those impressions. As we shed them off, you'd find life becoming lighter and more and more and more joyous. And that joy is to enjoy. Do you see how it is so related? Enjoy the joy. Why not? And so you make love once a year and some years you forget. Huh? But still damn joyful. Hmm? Because when you experience real joy, then you do not think of pleasure. Because pleasure is temporary. Joy is permanent. I had a girlfriend some years ago. Her name was Joy. It was quite enjoyable with Joy. I don't know if she's still permanent. You see, that's the beauty of life. Make life into this flower. Because as you progress in your evolution, remember one thing, that you're flowering. The bud is opening to its fullest glory. And then what does the flower do? Asking for no return. It gives off spontaneously its fragrance to all those around the flower. Does it spontaneously? Because it is the nature of the flower to give off the fragrance that we so much enjoy. And the flower doesn't ask for any return. The flower lives to its true nature. How many of us live to our true natures? Very few, unfortunately. Very few. Now, to live to your true nature does not mean 007 license to kill. Doesn't mean that. Your true nature, which is divine, not this contorted, distorted outer appearance of our own nature. That's a falsity. And that is caused by impression. So, as we gradually get rid of these impressions, greater and greater clarity comes to us. Yes. And we can see things then in its true light. We get rid of the jaundice. Because jaundiced eyes would see everything yellow. Well, it is not so. The wall could be white or blue or pink or sky blue pink, whatever. But it is our jaundiced eyes, because of those past impressions, that makes us see everything to be yellow. And then you become yellow livid. I think the Americans have a saying to that effect. He's a yellow, meaning he's a coward. So we're all blooming cowards, really. Yeah. We only want to see what we think we can see. But there's so much depths within each and every one to really see the beauty and the glory of the Father that might be. You guys must be getting hungry now. Okay. Enjoy your lunch.